In this episode, you'll learn why authenticity is the only sustainable way to live. Welcome to Energy Alignment for Entrepreneurs, the podcast helping entrepreneurs be free from anxiety, stress, and tension through balancing emotions and consciousness expansion. Here's the 3 things that you're going to discover today. Number 1, how performing yourself drains your life force. Number 2, why people-pleasing is a slow form of suicide. And number 3, what to do when you can't remember who you actually are. We begin with the first, and we have a few key points. Performing yourself is the first point, and then draining your life force is the second point. So the dance between wearing the mask or playing the facade is where you lose your life force. A common example is people-pleasing. What's the essence behind people-pleasing? There's some form of a fear, right? If you act and share what you actually feel, something bad may happen. There's a fear. That fear is also an insecurity of really wanting certainty, right? Insecurity has a direct correlation to a uncomfortableness with uncertainty, right? But the beauty is when you stop performing, you are no longer holding on to what you want life to be, and you're letting life show you what it's meant to be. And that's paradoxical, but that's when your life force no longer is drained. Because, see, you don't control everything in life, but you do have a direct ability to change where you stand. So, when you stop performing, you're able to move differently. And with this new form of movement, where you can be guided, carried, and flowing, the life force strengthens. You get stronger because you feel what you're meant to feel rather than reacting and putting ink on that clean slate. What you feel when you do not react and you breathe through the energy, or you just move through the energy, you allow the energy to be felt. You don't justify it or move too fast to different topics. You have a form of presence. This is what connects you to life force. This is how you strengthen your intuition, by noticing the play of the performance. See, you have this capacity to respond instead of react. And frequently, how you do that is the response is a bit slower than the reaction. Let's say that the reaction happens in a millisecond, so the response would happen in 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. Where, see, this is the beauty of life, right? We have seasons, we have temperatures, we have emotions, we have elements. We have moisture and texture and structures, shapes, sizes, speeds. Do you see? Those are like these structures, these underlying aspects or variables that are of the utmost fundamental sense. And so frequently we ignore the principles or the pillars of life because we're so stuck and absorbed in the narrow tunnel vision which the identity creates, right? Instead of seeing structures, we see desires. And instead of seeing colors and shapes and feeling the temperatures, we see what we want. We seek conformity or safety or being comfortable. But the question is, can you be content with uncertainty? Because if you can do that, you will realize that there's no need to perform. And funny enough, when you're done performing and you are just moving freely with the life force, you have more joy you laugh more frequently, and the time goes by faster. I can guarantee you there's been at least one moment in your life where the time has warped. Whether it be you're playing a video game and 2 hours goes by and you're like, what? Like, what do you mean? That was 2 hours? Or you're sitting in the school classroom staring at the clock and 10 minutes felt like 4 hours. And the 2 hours which you're playing the video game felt like 5 minutes. Time warps. Why? And that's what we're talking about, because time is a construct. Time is in relationship to thought. And you need to think. If you do not think, you're in asylum and you're quite useless. So that's not at all the message here. But the real point is, can you free yourself of thought while still moving through this world intelligently? Because the essence of the structure, the pillars, the bird's eye perspective, you may think initially that intuition and magic and spirit and alchemy is all foreign, but it may actually be so much closer to you than the normal vehicle which you're used to, which is logical thought and planning. And this logical thought is all composed via an identity, the sense of self, you may label it, or more practically, I'm Justin Agliscus. Who is I? Who am I referring to when I say me? Or, right? What has created who I see myself as? And the pillars there are continuously knowledge, memory, and thought. And you need knowledge. Your memory is valuable. Thinking is extravagant. But do you ever find that you're going and going and going, and the extravagance of thought has become a self-made prison? So this is perfectly leading into point number 2, where the people-pleasing is a slow form of suicide. It is an attachment to the identity, wanting to fit in. But what if you really aren't meant to fit in, but you're meant to be exactly who you are? See, you'll find yourself in environments where you fit in for a while, but then fitting in starts to be stale and almost disgusting. You almost get to this point where you realize the mask is so obvious, and that you would much rather be living in an uncertain symphony than a pre-planned stagnation. So the only way you learn how to dance with the tides of the symphony, which is unpredictable, is to get so sick and tired of being sick and tired with this stale, stagnant identity of chasing goals, of never being happy, of always moving the flag. You may say, once I get 10K a month, I'll be happy, but then watch. You'll get 10K a month, and you'll say, now it's 15K a month. Do you see? That is just a very simple example of how people please for yourself even. Now, if you bridge the people pleasing the performance outward, it's important to have an understanding of your relationship with yourself when you are isolated, when it is just you and you do not have stimulus, just to sit with your thinking. But it is also extremely valuable to feel your interpersonal connection to others and to see how they act in the energy that is emanating when you are in contact with others. You can learn in so many ways, and the learning is really a unlearning, actually. Because the people-pleasing is a protection. The ego in itself is a construct which you want to take care of, right? Now, if you get to a point where you are fully okay with dying, that means you're living your life well. And See, that's the wild thing, is there are aspects of life that many people do not even take the time to look at because we're so zoomed in on people pleasing ourselves. The goals, the hard work, the milestones, the ambition, the achievement. It's all necessary. There's nothing wrong with building, with creating, with learning practical skill sets. It's super important. What I'm pointing at, though, is can you enjoy each day and not be so obsessed with tomorrow? Because if I'm going to be very frank and plain with you, tomorrow is irrelevant. Sure, if you have a flight to board, well, pack your bags. Make sure your ticket's good, right? You get me there. But on the other end, there's no need to overwhelmingly have anxiety about tomorrow. If you are doing your best now, today, to create a beautiful tomorrow, the thing is, you live today not to create the beautiful tomorrow, but you live today in alignment that you have joy in your heart. And as that joy in your heart compounds, tomorrow carries over. You see, if you can really be honest, you'll get to this place of realizing that everything in your life you have sown. Whether you think you are a victim of something, you have attracted being the victim via the energy that you have put out, via your own thinking, and the work that you have or have not done. So, for example, this is a great practical example. There has been predators out there and conversations with these predators. And the question would be, how did they pick the children which they would try to attack, manipulate, molest, and rape? And it always comes down to, for the most part, the family. What was the mom like? Was she present? Was she around? And was the father strong, confident, active, vital? Because you see, this is a higher level thinking. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean I'm thinking on a higher level. I mean the bird's eye perspective, right? You have the ground and you have the sky. That's what I mean. I don't mean like better than. I don't mean that the sky is better than the ground or the ground is worse than the sky. But the bird's eye perspective can understand that there are variables, and it's not just one variable which makes something happen. So, that example is really coming into touching that you have the ability to create. And if you are to be strong, then you emanate an energy which attracts beauty into your life. Now, this is not the law of attraction. This is rather the law of subtraction. Because the only way to attract a beautiful life is to subtract what keeps your life stale, ugly, and unpleasant. Now, as I use the word unpleasant, pleasure is not the point of life. The point of life is to be able to find joy in things that may not be comfortable. To be content even when your body is shivering. Now you may, who knows? You may find yourself lost, shivering, and many people, they get to this point where they let go. They realize, well, I don't know what to do. And that's when the spirit comes into their heart. That's when a random man saves them. I saw this video a few weeks ago of a snowboarder who had his head 7 feet, 6 feet in the snow. And the only thing you could see were his skis on his boots above the snow. He was gone. He was left. He was done for. And all by chance, all by chance, they say, a random man is going down. And right as he passes him, he sees those feet. And he turns around, of course. And he digs them out. You see, what can I say there? Is it coincidence? Or was that something just magnificent in the works? something unnameable. That man, what he had to feel in his heart, buried in the snow, 6 feet under, he definitely let go. There's not a chance. I don't know how long he was there, but in his spirit will be with him for the rest of his life. I can guarantee you that changed his heart and started to at least point him, if he was not already on the path, point him toward realigning what actually matters. And that's the journey here. You start pure as a child. Unless you have like helicopter parents who are deeply manipulating and conditioning in a weird way, children, you can see that they have a beautiful sense for energy. It is super similar in animals too. And you can notice that there are hearts that are pure. You can just see the purity in the way that people move, how they speak, how they carry themselves. There's not a single thought about it. You can feel the emanations, the radiance, the unseen vibrations. This isn't about simply the unconscious. This isn't simply about union. It's not about any certain perspective of being a psychologist, a spiritual saint, or looking at your shadow. It is all of it. You can notice your shadow. You can let the unconscious be conscious. You can start to let that light change you. And you're content because even in moments where you're around those who are people pleasing or in a slow form of suicide, you see yourself in them. And you don't wish that they change instantly. But if they are ready to change, you will be ready to help. And if they are not, you will appreciate that they are just in their crucible and they may not have hit rock bottom. But for this whole journey to unfold, there must be patience, a joy in the mundane, a beauty in just looking at the things that you used to never take the time to appreciate. No one can do this for you. Third point, what to do when you can't remember who you actually are. Part of it is remembering, and part of it is subtracting all which obstructs the remember. You see, there are going to be phases in your life where you feel found, where you feel lost, where you go from found to lost and lost to found. And then all in one moment, you can just feel the beauty of being. The pain, the soreness, the spine, the muscle spasms, the injury. That is all still meaningful. It is really the question of, are you able to let go and be honest and be present and be full with where you are right now? There's no simple hack. There's no simple 1-2 change. But something that I've found to be extraordinarily valuable is speaking. As you talk, you can feel what you are putting out. And as you speak, you get better at understanding when there is nothing to say. And when there's nothing to say, you feel deeply. And when you feel deeply, you learn how to sense when you're saying what needs to be said. And it is that dance of being silent when the flow is not there. And as you're silent, the flow comes. You share that, you let it guide you, you move with it, and then it's gone. And then it comes back as you find joy in it being not there. You find joy in accepting that life is meant to be dynamic, that you are not meant to hold on to any specific state. There truly is no state of consciousness that is above another. The pain, the tears, the heartbreak, the physical soreness, the sadness, being betrayed, is all the same. And you just have less and less of that as you realize that it's beautiful. What this is all about is feeling and letting your heart be opened, letting the darkness be transmuted to light. You don't do any form of alchemy without being present with the shadow. The unconscious can never be heard if you do not take the time to give it presence and attention. But as you have less and less that is stuck in the unconscious, you begin to move in an essence which is quite unnameable. And what else does humanity need? I'm not too sure. Now, the recap: how performing yourself drains your life force. Every moment you spend being someone else is energy stolen from who you actually are. The performance, it requires consistent and constant maintenance. You're exhausted. If you are exhausted, it's because you're living two lives, the real one and the performed one. Now, why people pleasing is a slow form of suicide. Each time you betray yourself to make others comfortable, your spirit wilts a little bit. People pleasing is not kindness. It's cowardice, and it's disguised as a form of generosity. It's a trap. Just drop the need to be accepted and be who you actually are, who you can actually appreciate. You don't need external acceptance. You need internal alignment. Now, what to do when you can't remember who you actually are? You begin to question and notice when you're performing. And you feel the difference, the contrast between that authentic flow and that calculated, logical, pre-planned presentation. So you start to say no. You're honest. And then you don't need to always articulate why. Sometimes no is the full answer. Or right now. It can be that simple. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Thank you for listening. Please share this with a friend if you at all think that it resonates. And new episodes are out Monday and Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you want to get into amazing shape, I have a wonderful guide that I poured my heart into down below in the description. It's quite cheap, and, it's worth a lot more than I'm charging. So have an amazing day.